Now, we have also seen some attacks, and this is, you know, the ODM primaries are going on. The day before yesterday was Homa Bay. Yesterday was where? Where, you know, there was violence again. People are injured. People are even taken to hospital. And this is just at the party primary level. Now, one of the members of this party is the MP for Wajir South, Mohammed Adow, who is our guest for the next hour. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning, Eric. Good morning. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Yes.
You know, it's one of those where you look at Mohammed Adow, he's a journalist.
He's a journalist, right?
And then you're like, Ati Mheshimiwa, it's okay. Karibu sana.
Karibu sana.
Welcome to Fixing the Nation, one conversation at a time.
Thank you.
This is where broadcast meets podcasts.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and where we start the show, every conversation, with a quotable quote. Jano, what's today's one?
Today's quotable quote is, "Hope is a discipline." Let that sink in. Hope is a discipline was said by Mariam Kaba. She's an American organizer, educator, spoke out a lot after the George Floyd murder, very vocal about activism and human rights. And she uses this phrase to say hope shouldn't just be a fleeting feeling. It's a deliberate practice. And she goes on to say, especially in the face of oppression and systemic injustice, hope is a discipline. How does that sit with you?
Look, first and foremost, hope is the only emotion human beings cannot live without. Hope is, without hope, someone is dead. And that's why you see lack of hope is what leads people to extreme measures. So as long as you're hopeful, it means you're living, and it means you have to be disciplined in keeping hope, because it is the difference between life and death. When you see all these people trekking through the Sahara Desert, crossing the Mediterranean Sea, they're in search of hope. When you see people, you know, taking, you know, all these actions, extreme measures, it's the lack of hope. Just look at it everywhere. Hope. And I like it, you know, discipline and hope all brought together. That's life.
It's life.
It is indeed. Very, very good way of contextualizing it.
So.
Let's also contextualize the constituency that you represent, Wajir South. How big is it?
Don't get me started.
Start one.
22,000 square kilometers.
Wow.
That is the size of the former Nairobi province, Central and Western combined. In other words,
Nairobi, Central and Western provinces.
Yes. Another statistic is 10 times the size of Kiambu County. That's one constituency. It's almost 45 to 46% of the landmass of Wajir County. On one side is my constituency. The other side has 5 constituencies. It's one of the most blatant electoral injustices ever committed in the history of this country.
How many people live in Wajir South?
In the last election, they put it at 290,000. But that is after the boardroom editing of census results from the northeastern counties, which was the subject of a protracted court case, which was concluded about a couple of months ago, in which census results were cancelled for 15 out of the 18 constituencies in northeastern Kenya. 290,000 was the final result, but the raw data coming from enumeration clerks that went to the field to enumerate people was 490,000 for Wajir South constituency.
Okay. How many people voted in the last election?
About 70,000 voted. Yes.
70,000 voted.
That is the registered voters, and about 60% of those voted.
Okay.
You just called it one of the most blatant injustices. Some obviously were aware of why you said that, but explain just briefly why that's something that you wanted to bring out today.
Look, Wajir South constituency, 22,000 square kilometers. You can imagine that is the size of Rwanda, the country. Mandera County is the size of my constituency, and they have 6 constituencies. You have one constituency being represented by one member of parliament, and that is the size of it. There are nooks and crannies of my constituency that I have not been to till today. Not during the campaigns, not since I was elected to office, because just the sheer size of it, first of all, the logistics of it, but also we don't have an inch of tarmac road leading from any place to any place in the constituency. You do not have communication. So it becomes just too difficult to represent. And representation is one of the things that is given a lot of impetus in our current constitution. Yet the people of Wajir South have to depend on one member of parliament spread over such a very vast area. And it becomes just too difficult to be able to reach each and every one of those Kenyans who are far-flung within the constituency.
Is it all inhabited?
And also, again, constituency is the measure with which national resources are divided. So you can imagine constituencies that are the sizes of maybe 4 to 5 football pitches are getting the same amount of resources as Wajir South. So again, in terms of getting national resources, I mean, it's a whooping injustice.
Right. Is it all inhabited? Just before we
yes, it
all
is.
of it.
I mean, there are distances between some of the areas,
Yes.
but again, with the cyclical droughts that we have seen that have decimated the livestock of the pastoralists, more and more people are settling in urban areas and settlements. But again, there's also the vast number of pastoralists spread across whose livestock need, the services of the government. Yes.
And
Yes.
the government.
Yes.
Want to get into
And themselves as well.
ODM matters now. Just walk us through, for people who are not privy to how party primaries and grassroots elections work, how are they structured?
You mean the ODM primaries? I mean, it's chaotic most of the time because of, the nature of how our parties are still at their infancy, despite, the big name ODM has and maybe the national appeal. There is a lot at play here, politics, the issue of what they call, this is the kingspan for this area and all this political, that's something that's a landmark in our politics. But by and large, I think it is brave for ODM to say they will carry out party primaries. It shows that it is very much aware of the fact that they continue to need the support of the people in various parts of the country. But the exercises themselves are riddled with all kinds of irregularities. And we've seen the violence, to boot.
Who's supposed to oversee the process, safeguarding? Because if it's rife with that means there's a gap in who oversees the process.
There's an electoral board, and then there's the National Executive Council, which is supposed to oversee all this, as well as the different officials of the party. Again, it all comes back to, who has appeal there, who wants to get the upper hand. And in some places, ODM is more or less like a religion, if...
it is the party.
Your contest, your political contest ends at the point where you get the certificate of nomination. So the stakes are very high. Yeah.
So, and we see this. So in those areas where, for example, ODM is strong, you will see this kind of violence. In other areas as well. Remember in Nairobi when they were having the same conversations around UDA, and we saw the kind of tussle within Nairobi on the leadership of UDA, who's going to be the leader of UDA. Even in the days of Jubilee, it was the same, and I think it just takes us back into it's the hygiene of our politics.
Yes.
These political parties, are they actual parties, Mohammed, or are they just names and briefcases?
Good question. I don't think a culture of, real political party culture has yet to be inculcated in Kenya. For many, for lack of a better way of putting it, it's more or less like boarding an Uber, going to where you're going, and then as soon as the driver turns back to go where he's going, you don't care whether he falls in a ditch,
You're done with
You're
him
done.
when you just
you've
exit the
accomplished
vehicle.
what you wanted to accomplish. You've reached your destination. For most, that is the political party, if I can put it in a nutshell. Political party culture, political party ideology, political party discipline is more or less non-existent. People put a lot of impetus on which party is in power, first of all, and which party is most likely or is likely
to get into power.
The rest, semantics.
But so, if you look at how then this party has become so popular countrywide, look, you were elected in Wajir South on an ODM ticket.
Yes.
So ODM can sit here and brag and say, we have got a national outlook. Look, we have people who are in Wajir South who elect an MP on an ODM ticket. That's because he went through the party primaries, got the ticket, and then got into the ballot. So it has wide national appeal.
You can say that, but there are also other issues that contributed.
There are other factors.
There are other factors, of course.
Take us through your own example. Why did you join ODM? Why did you decide to vie for this election via ODM? And how did you win?
Look, I come from a region where, because of past incidents, history, people usually tend to vote with the opposition. Wajir has almost always voted with ODM. So it is a party my people know and identify with. Maybe not anymore, and maybe that's something we can talk about, why the ground is shifting. ODM is a national party. I agreed with, most of what they were saying, and what they were selling. But it's not just the party again, it's also about the individual who's getting elected, the clan dynamics in Northeastern, and all that. So if you ask me, it's not ODM giving me a seat, as you could say if I was contesting in Nyanza or some other parts of the country. It's me giving ODM a seat.
So the people of Wajir, like you've said, they've traditionally been voting with the opposition. They feel that the government of the day is not serving them, and so they hope that
something
opposition party
might come out of.
Okay.
These people who look more progressive have been promising them almost what they want. You understand? We will emancipate you from this, we will build the road, we will do that, and all that. Again, there are other factors that brought about the election of people on ODM tickets, rather than it being wholesomely about popularity of ODM in the region. Yes, the people have identified. But again, if, for example, I contested independently, chances are most likely I will have been elected, and so would the MP in Wajir West, my good friend Yusuf Farah. So it's not, there's no much political discipline and affinity to political parties as such. It's just that this region, because of the past injustices, has almost always identified itself with opposition. So, we have had big wigs like Ahmed Khalif, the late, Ogle, who used to stick almost always with the former President Kibaki.
Yeah.
So we've had, some of the most, although again, there's also been big political figures almost always sticking with
the ruling
party.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what has the opposition done for not just Wajir, but I think for the entire of northern Kenya? And I know it's a question of, we're in power, we're not in power, but has there been any push now that the people of Wajir vote with the opposition? Has that representation been seen on the other side when we're in parliament now?
I must say not much. Not much. Apart from the usual lip service. Again, whenever we find ourselves in a handshake kind of situation, do you see, the opposition going for, appointing, again, it's tokenism once again, and it's about appointing people, to a PS position or a cabinet slot here and there. No, you don't see much. Actually, from this handshake, from this broad-based agreement, we don't call it handshake anymore, broad-based agreement that we are currently in, we've only gotten one principal secretary for the entire northern Kenya from, the ODM side.
Would it be is that tokenism more useful than actual representation? Because, it's a principal secretary here, a cabinet secretary there.
A chairman of a board somewhere.
Chairman of a board somewhere. Would it not be, more helpful?
Tokenism is tokenism. It is done when you don't want to take action on the things that really matter. So no, it's not helping at all. Yes,
it's ceremonial.
It's ceremonial,
and that way.
Yeah, very well, well put.
But you still sound, a bit disgruntled that we only got one permanent secretary.
Yes.
So you still want the token?
No, again, because that is the only game in town. We also want to feel represented. So we needed more.
What would feeling represented look like? What does that look like to you?
If the only representation is that tokenism, if the only thing that's being offered is that, then we also want to get, that.
How will you feel represented?
If it's only cake on the table, you want a bigger piece of the cake.
Yes.
How would it look like? So how many more positions?
At least a CS and maybe 2 principal secretaries for the region. It's the third largest.
What is region?
For crying out loud. It's the third largest region in the country.
What is region? Are you talking about the 3 counties?
Northeastern region.
The 3 counties?
Yes.
Wajir, Mandera, Garissa.
Anymore.
So those 3 counties, 1 CS and 2 PSS, you mtasikia at least mko.
Yes, because some have up to 5 and 6.
But what does that do for the people of Wajir and Garissa and Mandera?
They will feel represented.
What does it do for them, for their lives?
How does that benefit them?
Yeah.
How is it benefiting the others? We have come from, and I need to put this in context. We've come from a position of exclusion, and for a very long time. And we're really yearning to join mainstream Kenya. So for us, whatever is being offered, the more, the merrier.
We just want a seat at the table, yeah?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter what's
because
happening
if you're not sitting at the table, you're on the menu.
You're on the menu.
I'm wondering how ODM national. I'm looking at something about what impact does the national level cooperation with government have on grassroots mobilization? Does it really trickle down to grassroots? Because it feels like there's such a huge gap there.
It's not a clear-cut process. You understand? There are a lot of, issues involved. But yes, the national office bearers are very much in charge of the process, and as it trickles down. But then there are other bigger players also on the grassroots who are the ones who are making things take shape. Yeah.
I know that there was some pretty harrowing stories that we profiled in terms of just how, it's the word ugly, can I say that? The violence that we've seen.
It is a word.
It is the word. But I don't know whether you've already spoken to it in terms of who's supposed to oversee that. He talked about political hygiene. I feel like sometimes it's such a concern if it's already happening that way at the grassroots level, if it's already so murky and so dirty, it kind of almost feels like it sets the precedence. So how and why has it gone so wrong this time? Why are we seeing such extreme acts of violence, and what's been done to address it?
As I said, the stakes are very high, and especially in those areas where you're seeing violence rear its ugly head. It is survival for the fittest. I don't know whether that is the right phrase to use. The stakes are so high because of the dogmatic following of the party in those areas. And as I said, political contests almost always end up at the point where you get the nomination certificate. So many people want to take advantage of it, and the stakes are so high, and that is where the issue is.
But it doesn't have to get to that. As a party, is there not a way to, I know what's within the control, what's not? Somebody losing a hand, it doesn't really set a good precedent.
Not good, not great at all. But then again, that is our politics. That is where we are at. And the only way, and the only place we can go is up, because I don't think we can go any lower than this. Politically, when it comes to
So this was rock bottom as far as...
But again, if somebody is losing a hand and there is violence and all that, then it is rock bottom. We have to say things as they are.
It's not rock bottom. I think we have been, this is where we've been. You may call it at the rock. What we can't say is that we have sunk to the rock bottom. We have been operating at this level. In every time you see party primaries, you see violence. Every time you see these party grassroots elections, just to choose a branch leader, chair and leadership of a branch of a political party, in some areas where, at the areas where the party is strongest, you see elections. You saw it, again, like I said, in Jubilee, you see it in UDA, you're seeing it in ODM. It's not the first time. We have seen it all the time. What does that say about us? I mean, how do we change from this? Can we just scrap this whole political party nonsense thing and just say, we run without parties?
You're dealing with a symptom.
Okay.
It is the politics, not the party politics per se, or on its own. I mean, the politics of Kenya is, I mean, and I come from a different direction. I call myself an outlier when it comes to all these issues, because I come from I have always covered Kenyan politics. And I mean, there is a lot of room for improvement when it comes to not just discipline of the parties, but also how we conduct our business. There's so much fixation on politics, not just within those who are in politics, but also the public as a whole. Politics seems to be the only thing that people look at as having, as the only way to succeed. So you see young people who've just graduated from university going deep into politics, throwing their hat into the rings, maybe for MCAs, some for members of parliament. It is become, I mean, an attraction for all of us. In our conversations, politics dominates. When we talk about success, many people, in many people's minds, it's politics. And I think we need to just step back from that and see what can be done to ensure that we are not these political-centric. And probably most of the issues that we're facing in our politics will resolve themselves. I don't know whether I'm being very clear here, but I think there's a lot of emphasis on politics at every level of society, to the extent that it's become a way of life. And when the stakes are so high like that, when something is so valued and so treasured like that, then you see people going to extreme measures like those to try. I mean, I don't know whether, and it is partly because of the imbalance.
It's the nature of our politics. Let's take a break. We'll continue with this conversation shortly. Mohammed Adow, the MP for Wajir South, is our guest. We are talking about, what we are seeing, political party, grassroots elections, ODM. We are seeing violence. We have seen violence in other grassroots elections for parties. Just remember, there was an entire kerfuffle, I think, in Nairobi, in Mombasa, when UDA was doing the same kind of exercise. We see it in all other political parties, especially the big political parties. And we're asking ourselves, what's causing all this? There are people who are saying, David Mangera says it's primitivity at its best. No leaders at all in Kenya. These are the comments that are coming in. Let's take a break at 7:30. We'll be back shortly and continuing this conversation. Let's also hear from you. You can post your comments on our YouTube and Facebook and X streams.
400.
Kabisa.
Yes.
Our guest, Mohammed Adow, is the MP for Wajir South. Like Mariam has said, Jimmy Gakio is saying, Allah, this dude used to be a reporter. Did he work for Al Jazeera? He's the same one. In many others on BBC as well.
Right.
You've covered politics, not just in Kenya. You've covered politics in the world. Now you're in politics. Looking at it from the inside, and you see this is how party primaries, not just primaries, party grassroots elections are conducted. This is how parties organize themselves from the grassroots level going up, right? And that's a question we're asking. What kind of politics are we running in this country? Now, let's take this grassroots election is happening countrywide, right? In Wajir, county, for example, and then coming into your own constituency, do you expect to see this kind of violence?
No.
Why not?
Because over the years, certain people have been associated with the party and they're the ones calling the shots. And again, there's not as much emotion as you would see in Nyanza, for example. And actually, even Nyanza is the wrong example. For example, as you would see it in some parts of Western and other things, because and other places. Because, I mean, party iko na wenyewe Wajir. And it takes quite a huge toll and a lot of effort for somebody. You're not going to be elected to office based on the whim that you are a member of ODM, based on the fact that you're a member of ODM in Wajir. But it's different in those traditional areas that have supported the party to the hilt, like in Nyanza. And again, I'm thinking and pose the question, if there was no broad-based agreement, would people have gone hammer and tongs like they're doing now? There's something to be made. There's a gain to be made from having that title as of now. And again, you might say in the past, it was also equally cantankerous and violent. But I would say not at this magnitude, because there's something to be made. And that is the very nature of our politics in Kenya. Winner takes it all. Anything, you know, the end justifies the means.
Yeah.
You have to succeed by whatever means, even if it means, on the edge of the sword. And that, it doesn't, politics is life. And again, what I have realized since joining politics is being a member of parliament, being in government is nothing more than giving service to the people. Because the people are supreme here.
Yeah.
And the people have so many issues, so many challenges, from lack of schools to lack of health care to lack of almost everything that they need. Now, we are not giving leadership to those who deserve it best. This is my assessment.
Okay. So in that same sense, the people don't have a voice, they have needs, but who ends up winning at the polls? Is it somebody who's quietly backed by the party, especially at the grassroots levels? Are there leadership dynamics that say somebody's been quietly backed and therefore what the people want and their needs aren't heard because the person they wanted perhaps wasn't the person that was being quietly backed?
In almost every instance and every case, blatantly so, the needs of the people are overlooked. And it is big men, those we worship, who are calling the shots. That's the sad reality.
So chama iko na wenyewe.
Every Kenya iko na wenyewe. Niko na mwenyewe kwanza. Hata sio wenyewe. Almost every party has one big guy there who calls the shots, does not consult, including his elected members of parliament.
Even these grassroots, that's what you're saying for these grassroots polls, is that
mwenye chama amechagua.
Mwenye chama ndio kusema. To the end. And by the way, and not just on those primaries, because those, by the way, are periphery things. I'm talking about core stuff, like who, gets elected, who gets nominated to positions. So it's, and that's the reality. And it's not just ODM.
And are we talking in an undemocratic way? Because you're the party principal. So siniwe kusema.
Yeah, but again, there must be consensus. There must be consultation. The party has different organs. The parties have different office holders. Why create this huge machinery called the party, complete with positions and titles and everything else to boot? Yet, it's all coming from one way, and nothing is going from up, going there.
But I think I also see something coming from down. Like, if you can prove yourself at the grassroots that you are a great mobilizer, you are able to, bring people together, then you have something to leverage with them when you're party.
That is sporting talent. That's sporting talent,
So when
everybody needs a winner around them. So yeah, you can prove yourself against all odds to catch the eye of the powers that be in whatever that entity is, a political party or anything, but that's more about sporting talent, sometimes for personal gain, rather than for the greater good.
You know, you saying that the polls are what they are, that's the, I don't know, for lack of a better word, the person who's elected isn't necessarily the person that the people want elected.
And I have to be frank here, and I have to say it. Things are the way they are, and they are not going to change until the Kenyan people change their mindset about how they look at politics and political leaders, how they elect their people. Now, if you have already sold your voter's card on the day of the election, or you voted along tribal basis, huyu ni wetu, ama amenipa kitu, or I expect him to give me something, and we're not thinking as one unit called Kenya. There's nothing that unites us, not even the Kenyan flag, not even the national anthem. Nothing unites us. In one part of the country, if a disaster happens, it doesn't do anything in terms of causing, you know, the least emotion in another part of the country. An earthquake, a landslide in Murang'a is a Kikuyu problem. A ferry sinking in Lake Victoria is a Luo problem. Bandits attacking, you know, a bus full of people in northeastern Kenya. I mean, when those bandits used to be there, nowadays the highways, by the way, are very safe.
But it's not just that.
It's a Somali problem.
To even clans.
What unites us as Kenyans? We are a jumble of regions, counties, and entities drawing in different directions. That is who we are.
I want to pull that thread a little bit and go into the clan politics, specifically of Northeastern. But just before that, we have a caller called Robert from Migori who wants to either ask you a question or say something. Good morning, Robert.
Morning to you. How are you?
Very well. Do you have a question for Honorable Mohammed?
Yes, I have a question for Honorable Mohammed. First, great for me, Eric. Thank you.
I'm seeing
a thumbs for Eric. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
My question goes to Honorable MP. Is talking about party na wenyewe, and the ODM claim to be the most democratic party in the country. So what if the party has its own people? Why then today carry election where we have witnessed some casualty, people are losing lives, people are losing their body? If party kuna wenyewe, why don't they just do the appointment, then avoid the election at the primary level? Lastly, I wanted to tell him that this time round, we have witnessed a peaceful election at the primary level back in Migori. We have not experienced any casualty character or any other thing. So that's the question I have for him. Let him just answer that so that we know if truly they are democratic the way they are saying, or people should carry to these elections if party hakuna wenyewe. And kama kuna party kuna wenyewe, then wenyewe wajitokeze tuwajue. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Why do an election? It's rigged.
It's a great question.
Is it rigged from the get-go?
Why not just a point? Seme, wa Wajir ni huyu, wa Migori ni huyu, and we close the chapter.
Yeah, because the Political Parties Act stipulates a certain way of doing things.
So it's just ticking the boxes.
Ticking the boxes.
But I also heard, Mohammed, that in some of these areas, yes, there is a party supremo. But when it comes to grassroots issues, the people say, all right, so for us to continue supporting you, you've got also to give something back to us. You've got to allow us to organize ourselves at the grassroots level. And this is where the party is told, you keep off, okay? He apako ground, branch secretary, branch chairperson, and all, you're to a chair. Where when it comes to now governor and those things up there, you can make the decision. Is that not the case?
Partly so.
Okay.
Because you have to throw people crumbs, and if the crumbs are the grassroots, so be it.
Oh my God. So it's like crumbs. But when it comes to like areas where you come from, where we see, and this is going to what Mariam wanted to ask, on clanism, where we see even how your community picks leaders. You go back into, so this is Wazir sit down and Wazir have a conversation, and then now Wazir communicate to the community. This is what our decision.
Look, negotiated democracy, as it's called,
Yeah.
is one of the most backward things that ever happened. To be honest with you, a congregation of elders, most of whom have been, already seen, in wherever, in their homes.
They've been wametembelewa.
They have their favorite already. Meet and say it's sober. It's somebody there. And because of these deep-seated clan connections that borders on madness, the people have to conform. And that's how you see the most, undeserving leaders being elected. If it was led to the people and ideology and policies were sold to the people, if candidates were outdoing each other based on, either past experiences with the people, huyu alikuwa amechimba bohol fulani hapa, huyu amesaidia watoto kusoma, huyu, all those things were the consideration, then you'll have better leaders.
But the political attitudes are shifting, especially when you look at young people.
They
Gen
are
Z
shifting
women. There's no influence
with the social media
that.
generation. They are shifting, but the power still intactly remains in the hands of the elders, because of, we are the elders, and you cannot, go above our heads, speak against us, because we will curse you. We will curse you, So it is changing.
Kila mtu akona kura yake.
Kila mtu akona kura yake, but the people have yet to realize not much civic education has been done among the people for them to realize the power of that single card, and that it is about their feet. And by the way, most of the campaign rallies I held in my constituency during the past election were not political rallies, but rather civic education, enlightening people about the power of that. Just look. I used to tell them, just look at your surrounding. Is there medicine on the shelves of your medical facility, the health center, your dispenser? Nothing. Are your kids getting bursaries, either from the county government or, and again, you go to places which have not had water for 60 years, yet leaders were being elected one after the other. What is happening? Water is devolved. The county government is supposed to provide water. What? Because you are electing the wrong leadership, is what I was telling them.
Did you have the backing of your clan?
There was no way I could get even to the campaigns without going through there.
That's the first starting
That is the first point of call. It's only when you get the blessings of your community that you're going to go. And I find it Stone Age, to be honest with you. It is so backward. Why not let people compete on a level playing ground?
But you benefited from it, Stone Age or not.
No. Look, you have a fantastic point, and you're correct. I went through it. I would not say benefited from it. I went through it. And also, I would say it was the most difficult process of the electoral process that I passed through. It is unnecessary, it is cumbersome, and it is archaic.
Why is it difficult? It sounds like, you just go to, the mzee. So you just go, mzee, habari, you know me, I'm so-and-so, I'm the son of so-and-so, I come from this family, and I'd like to be a leader of our community. And the mzee asks you a couple of questions and says, okay.
On face value, that is what it may seem. But imagine having to track 200 elders spread over a very wide area and convincing all of them. And again, the sub-clan, sub-clan arithmetics. One will rock up and say, we've never been elected to parliament.
It's our turn.
It's our turn. And there is no way you're going to go through them. And they have their candidate there.
Yeah.
Based on the mere fact that sub-clan has never been elected to parliament or to a public
Does this
position.
lock out young voices, women's voices?
It locks out
Exactly
the
right.
best.
Yep.
Sometimes it locks out the best of brains. It locks out the best. And it doesn't matter how big placed you are. You know, you saw, you know, people who were high flying in their careers who ended up being, you know, cabinet ministers going down now for elective positions and then getting turned down.
Nothing, yes.
You know, administrators with a track record, you know, for being good workers, being turned down. So it is unfair. And I am a proponent of moving beyond clan dynamics and because,
How do you fix that?
Because ultimately what happens in that meeting or in those gatherings where these decisions are made, they have reverberations on the society for a good 5 years and even beyond, because one person who would have made things different has been locked out, and in comes somebody who probably doesn't understand exactly why they are there, because some clan catapulted them by crying foul and saying we were not elected for this number of years. So it's not scientific.
How do we fix it?
It's not logical. And I think the public have to change their views about these dogmatic clan ideals and this near crazy, you know, addiction to clanism and all that, and look at, you know, leaders based on their attributes and their contribution to society and their track record and their standing in the society, rather than just blindly electing somebody because somebody has been harded before them. No, I think in the 21st century, in this age where information is out there for everybody,
It doesn't make sense. Just before, I know we're going to wind up soon, do you regret shifting from media to politics?
No, regret is not the word. Regret, I miss journalism, no doubt about it. Because even in terms of impact, I believe the impact was really, you know, high on that end. When I look at what I have done in Wajir South, when I look at the actions that I have taken that have changed the lives of so many different communities in the constituency, I will never regret joining politics. People who did not have water for 60 years today have water. Electricity coverage has moved from 0.03 or 0. Less than 1% to hopefully by the end of this year to almost 20%, 25%. We have built 10 new secondary schools, 5 exclusively for girls in 2 years. More than 40 boreholes drilled.
New secondary schools?
New secondary schools from scratch.
Right.
I only had 2 girls' secondary schools in my constituency when I came into office. Today we have 7 girls' secondary schools. And you can imagine the number of girls dropping out because their parents do not want to take them to far-off schools.
Yeah.
They would rather want them close because of the nature and culture of the community. For the first time, agro-pastoralism is seeing, some implementation of sort. We have about 7 or so model farms in my constituency that's lowering the cost of living because fruits and vegetables are being grown in the locality and do not need to be brought from the other side of Kenya and accrue so many transportation costs. My technical and vocational training college is free of charge thanks to the Wajir South Bursary. We have trained almost 400 new teachers, some of them still in training, thanks to the Wajir South Scholarship for Teachers. So when I look at the impact, that my leadership has had on the ground, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet, this is something
regrets.
anyone from Wajir South will be able to confirm.
Okay.
No regrets at all.
You feel at least you've done something. Adow, thank you for joining us today.
Wait, before we let him go, is the ground shifting towards President Ruto, in favor of President Ruto and UDA and Kenya Kwanza in Wajir?
Yes. Yes, it is. And it's just because the president is symbolically breaking down structural political barriers that we have seen. The political ground is shifting not because people have forgotten the past, but because they recognize that history is beginning to turn. For the first time, we have a president who understands the history of the people and is slowly making the necessary decisions to change. And one thing he has done.
Yeah, we've got to end it there, Mohammed. Thank you. We'll do this conversation at some point.
The road, let me just say this, the construction of that road alone is, what is causing this shift, but also the signing out of, the
IDs.
The vetting.
Let's cap it there.
Mohammed Adow is the MP for Wajir South. Keep it here. In the next hour, we will give somebody the mic, and Shika Mike will listen to what they have to say. It's 8 a.m.